Hi, this is Cheryl back with you from Farmhouse Frugally, and this is part of the Thrift Flip Road Trip. I will talk a little bit more about that later on. This leg of your road trip is in New Hampshire. I am starting with this stool. I asked my husband to cut it in half for me, and today I am going to work on the top half. I started by cleaning it good and sanding it, especially on the bottom, to make those feet a little bit more rounded and stand straight. And then I am mixing a custom color. I started with 3 chalk paint colors, a gray tone, a navy blue tone, and some yellow to get this absolutely gorgeous green. So it does take 2 full coats to cover over the white and then giving me the opportunity to distress back and to wax over this since it is a chalk paint. Here it is after the first coat, and then I went ahead and gave that a second coat. Now, I was not intending on keeping this piece at all, but I love how it turned out so much that I found a home for it. And I have another item in a similar color coming up in a future video to help pull that room together, so you'll have to stay tuned for that. If you are not subscribed, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Now, once I have 2 full coats on this, and the top had been sanded to the best of my ability, but it is, I think, probably something that has been sitting outside in the weather. It was pretty dirty, but that's okay. I'm going to make this look really vintage. So I am going to start with sanding over some of the edges and getting that back to the white and a little bit of the wood. And then I'm going to take out my antiquing wax, and I'm going to go over the entire thing. Because it's chalk paint, I want to seal the chalk paint in. I also want to make this look a lot more vintage, and I love the dark wax over this green color. It just gives me the perfect vintage green color that I was looking for. So once I have the base of this covered, then I'm going to go ahead and work on the top. I started brushing on the antique wax that had been watered down, and then that was a little lighter than I was anticipating, but it did soak right into that wood, being that it was sanded and also very, very dry. So once I get that at least a top coat, then I'm going to move on. Earlier in the year, my husband and I had gone to Hudson, New York on a trip and had picked up a few things at some antique stores on Warren Street, one of them being some of these stencils that you use to stencil on crates. So I am just going to go ahead and stencil on the top of this to give this a real vintage feel. And then once that paint has dried, I want to make this darker. I also want to make it a little more distressed, so I am going to sand over some of the words so they don't look perfect, and then I am going to take out the straight antiquing wax, and I'm going to go over that seat again. This way I can make this a lot darker and make this look like it's been around for 100 years, which is the look that I like. And I just loved it so much that I looked around my house to see if there was any place that it might work out. And surprisingly, I loved it against the color in my foyer, my entryway. So I am going to get back to that in a minute. But I decided to pull that color in a little bit more. I would grab a couple of the old-fashioned type of clothespins and use that same color on them. Now, once I have 5 of them covered in this color and they dry, then I pulled out my little sander and just kind of distressed those back to the wood. And then, of course, I took out the antiquing wax to cover over the green to get me, again, that antique green feel and to make them look more old and vintage. And then once I have that done, I pulled out my IOD stamps and some black ink. And the easiest way to do this is to just go ahead and put the ink on the stamp, but the stamp face up, and then roll the clothespin across the stamp the way that you want that, whether it's the marmalade stamps or some of those script stamps or whatever. I just love the way that these look when you do that. So once I have those done, I did want to run over the top edge of the clothespins also and get that a little bit more of the words on the top. And then I am going to just bundle these up with some twine in a little bundle and put them in a little bowl with some other things on this little stool table, so that will just pull that color in. And I absolutely love how sweet these came out. And here they are in my entryway on that piece of stool that came from the good table at my dump. So you'll have to let me know what you think about this color, first of all, and whether or not you like the style of this finished product. Now, before I move on to my next thing, let me tell you a little bit about today's road trip. It is always hosted by Sammy at Unicorn Dust Designs and the Crafting Cousins. This month's guest host is Jody at Southern Seasons. So make sure you check out their channels and the playlist, which will be in my description box. And there is phenomenal giveaways as part of this, which will be explained in a few minutes. Now that takes me on to my next DIY. Now I love this basket. I have a lot of them in my pantry. They are a little on the orangey side though, and so that is just not really the vibe that I like. So for me, this is not an expensive basket, so I thought that I would like to go ahead and make this a little bit more vintage. And I do that by just brushing on that same antiquing wax that has been put in some warm water to kind of melt it a little bit and make it a little bit less brown and a little easier to work with. You can do straight up wax, but it would be very brown. Even this watered down one does dry darker than it appears when you're first putting it on. But I absolutely love the way that it looks compared to the very orange tone. So that was great. And then I wanted to put a little more something on this. So I went out to Canva. I just created a little sign and I printed it on regular print paper. And I tore that out to the size that I needed so that I could decoupage it on. I had one of these little signs from when I used to have a little primitive country shop. This was left over, so I painted over the words and went ahead and decoupaged on top of that. And once that was completely dry, I came back and I took some distressing ink and kind of went around the edges of the paper to make that match a little bit more with the vintage wood feel on the edges of this sign. And then I was just going to loop it over the basket, but I decided to cut the wire hanger and twirl the front wire and then push it through the basket and attach it in the back of the hydrangeas that I have in bloom right now in September were the inspiration for this beautiful basket so that I could display them as you see here in my bathroom. They go beautifully with the color on the wall, and I just love the vintage feel of them. For many people, this shabby chic look, this vintage feel, is an all year round thing, so I thought that it looked lovely here on the desk as well. which takes me on to my final, which is this trunk that I picked up at the dump. Now, this is actually a set of trunks, but today I am only going to work on one. Now, these are no doubt some made in China kind of a piece and were falling apart, hence the reason someone left them on the good table. And this stuff here is metal, so I did take like a carpet knife and I did cut along the edges and just kind of wiggle those loose and pull them out. Some of them just came right off, and a little bit of the edges just kind of had to be worked at, but I was able to get 90% of that off. And once I did, then I was able to sand, primarily sand the wooden portion and get some of that glue off of this to continue to work on this. I am making this set of trunks for a girl in my church, and she likes the kind of shabby chic cottage core style, so these will be done more like that. So after I sanded all the glue off and got those ready, I did paint the entire trunk white with the linen white chalk paint from Annie Sloan that I also got from my dump. So once that is completely covered, and I am not going to make you watch me paint this entire trunk. Initially, I was thinking that I was going to need several coats of it, but it actually covered pretty well. And I am, it's a pretty thick chalk paint. So I am going to cover the hardware, the corners, the little bit of detail the metal detail that I did leave on it, as well as the handles, everything in this white, and then let that thoroughly dry. And now once I have this dry, I had in mind a specific transfer that I had left over from a trunk that I did last year. So you may have seen that large trunk that I had picked up at the dump, and I had finished off very similarly to this and sold. And so this set I thought would be sweet to use up the rest of that transfer. And so once that's completely dry, I actually wait a day or two, because when you're using a transfer, if you try to go over even not tacky, just dry paint that's been dry for a while, you may still need to wait an extra day or two just to make sure that that transfer is going to adhere easily. And I just love the colors on this beautiful transfer. This is a Prima redesign, a rose collection, and I don't know if they still have this one, but I do love that it has the gold tones, and I love the peach and the green combination, and I think it looks so shabby chic, cottage core, so I thought that this would be great. And I'm sure that you have seen people do this many times, but you just peel the back off, stick that on the way that you want it, and you take the tool provided and keep pressing down until you can get that to adhere. Now, this is kind of a plywood, so there were a couple of cracks in this transfer, but all in all, it kind of goes with the shabby chic look. The words are a little harder to make stick down no matter which transfer you use, so you do want to take your time with that. And then once you feel confident that you've got it started, a lot of times you can kind of catch an air bubble or catch a wave, and then just sort of pull the rest of that up. If anything sticks to the paper, the plastic, you just put that back down and rub it back on until you get the whole design down. You can pull it as you go. I just found with this particular one that didn't work as well as it sometimes does. So that was for the top of the trunk, and then I am just going to take a couple of little leftover pieces and put that on the front of the trunk. Then once I had the front of the trunk done with the little scraps, then I opened up the trunk, which the interior of this trunk is one of the reasons why I got it. Doesn't look like anyone ever put anything in it. It is in pristine condition, and it has kind of a burgundy velvet feel. And I just took some of the white paint and went around the interior edges of both the top and bottom of the trunk just to clean that up. And then I decided that I wanted to take some gold rub and buff, and I wanted to bring out the details of the edging and the metal pieces on this that will bring out some of the gold that is in the transfer and give this just a little bit more. The color of this rub and buff is antique gold and goes very well with those swirls and letters. And then once the entire thing is outlined, I did the handles and a few other things with that gold rub and buff. Then I pulled out some bird stamps and I attempted to stamp on this using gold rub and buff. I had never tried that before, and I was hoping that I could get a gold bird on that, but unfortunately, probably because it dries so quickly, I don't know, but once I attempted that, it did not come out. So then I just went ahead and stamped that using some black ink. And I am hoping to do the second trunk in a somewhat matching, if not the same, so that she can stack them on top of each other and have them coordinate. And so once that is done, I just went ahead and took some peach ribbon and tied them through the missing lock on the front of this one. The larger trunk still has its latch, but this one was missing, so I thought that just finished that off, and it looks very, very sweet, very shabby chic. So I would love to know what you think about today's thrift flip road trip. And now stay tuned for the details of the giveaway. Do not forget to hit subscribe.
Welcome to the Thrift Flip Road Trip. Today we're driving into an exciting open challenge brought to you by Unicorn Dust Designs, Crafting Cousins, and our special guest host, Jody at Southern Seasons. Watch as talented creators transform forgotten treasures into something extraordinary. And here's the best part. We're giving away fabulous prizes to 5 lucky winners. Prizes include a Dremel rotary toolkit from Homeridge Studio, a micro sander and a pair of miter snips from Happiness Created, a $25 Amazon gift card from Farmhouse Frugally, and 2 wood craft kits from Crafting Cousins. To enter, just watch the September Thrift Flip Road Trip playlist and comment your favorite project from each creator on their video. You must comment on every video to be eligible to win. Mark your calendar for September 28th when we will announce the winners on our community tabs. I'm sorry, due to shipping costs, the giveaway is only open to U.S. residents. Don't miss out on this chance to win, and be sure to spread the love by following the playlist link in the description box below.